Okie dokie. So like I said, going to be starting modeling a hinged object, in this case, a lidded container. Still going to have two components, top and bottom, imported hardware, but I want to build it as a case for my very, very nice Harbor Freight digital caliper. Whatever, it still works, and that's all we need. Okay, so like we've been starting with a lot of this stuff, I like to build a reference box first. Now I'm just going to build a really quick form of this guy here. So what I'm going to start with is just building. How long is this thing? This is 25 millimeters long, and that thing is about 15 millimeters wide. Cool, cool, and cool. So I'm going to start with a sketch. Basic part. Start with a center rectangle. Our old favorites. What did I say? 15 wide. 15 by 240. Then it'll have this box here, which is about 30 by 60. Right click, make another one. Let me go to the top just so I can see what I'm doing here. Somewhere there-ish. We will build that better. What did I say? It was 60 by 30. That'll get moved. Somewhere-ish, and I'll figure that out in a minute. Then I'm going to build this quick little reference here. Again, I'm just building this as a quick reference. Let's see. That whole thing is basically 80 by 30. Something of that out to this. 80 by 30. I will use some constraints to snap. No, not a coincidence. I'll just move this thing over. Move that over till it intersects with that line. Array for things and stuff. And then just a couple of triangles just to kind of throw that together. Where's the center? Right about there. About 20, so we'll pretend that's about there. Roughly, we'll say 22. Cool. Same. Do something to that effect. Again, this, I'm just throwing together like a quick little reference here. It's not going to be exact by any means, but it's going to give me pretty well a good idea. Model something right through the middle. I'm going to use a construction line as my mirror line so that I can mirror those things. There we are. Select my mirror line. Snap over there. Friggin' hooray. Sort of kind of ish. A pair of calipers. Do some trimming here. Again, obviously you'd want to be a lot more exacting, but I'm just throwing this together so that we can move on with the evening. And make sure I select my center. Move. That is going to be roughly there-ish. Yeah, there-ish. That seems sort of kind of correct. And yeah, there's a little doodaddly there. So we'll pretend that's the little thingamabob. Did that not connect? Yeah, it's fine. Okay, oops, that is as a construction, change it back over to a solid, super friggin' duper. Okay, so that is roughly a pair of calipers. And same there, that ought to do, is that not? Dang it, keep forgetting to turn off the construction line. Okay, so there is roughly a outline for my caliper, finished there. And I'm just going to extrude this up so I have my proper thicknesses, which is roughly about 5 millimeters thick on the whole thing. I want that and that. and that as 5. There we go. Hit OK. I need my sketches back. Wasn't done with that. You jerk. Extrude all of these parts. And then that thing is roughly, let's say 15 for good measure. That seems about right. Make sure this is joining. Super good. Okay. Now to help myself out here, I'm going to select this whole thing, which I probably should have done this already as a separate component, but I'm going to just transfer this over my kind of rough caliper thing as a new component. So I have the very top active. I selected the body. I opened a new component, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Bleep, bloop, blop. Calipers. Okay. Switch to Shift N to switch to component coloring. There we go. Now, other thing, don't forget to save. So, example, Hinged Container box. Yokie dokie. All right. So that's what I'm working with. That's my first set of dimensions, all of that such. Yes, it's very rough, but that doesn't really matter because that's exactly what we're doing, just making a rough model for that part. Give yourself some extra time, actually do it right, get it right, that sort. Okay, so now I know that's how big the thing needs to be. How big does my actual box need to be? Well, this part is all very much straightforward from what we've been doing pretty much so far all semester. How long do you want to make that? Give it a little extra on either side. So if it was 24, let's make it 20 or 280. Sorry, if it was 240, 280. This thing's in centimeters, not millimeters. So there we go. And then we'll say maybe 12. So 120 by 280. Okay. So I'm going to start a new component right from the get-go. New component 2 will be, let's say, box bottom. Okay. I'll start with the old sketch. Snap to the bottom, view from the top. And I want a rectangular from the center because why not? Why not? And I said it was 120 by 240. No, 240 is gargantuan. Oh, that's because I have butterfingers. Not 240. Let's make that 280. There we go. That seems better-ish. Great. A little large probably, but that's okay. We can always make some adjustments later. Okay, basic sketch is really all I need for right now. Of course, I can round some stuff out. I can also do this after the fact, but right now, I think I will go ahead and put fillets on. Guys, it's all right, recording. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of fillets. So remember, if you want to make everything referential, you can. You can type in the first one and then cycle through the others. But if you just want to keep them pretty much all the same, let's say I'll make that 10. While the tool is still active, go around and select your other corners, and it will do all of those in one go. Makes it a little bit easier, that sort. But that locks them all into place. Okay. Yes, blah, 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 blah. So that's about the size we're going to make. I'm going to show you a few extra things for in a minute. But for now, just want to show you building up the basic size, how big this needs to be. All right, finished sketch. Now, I am, of course, going to add a lot more to this. But for now, I'm just trying to see how big does this all really need to get to be. Okay. So looking straight on, now I can see how big I need to start extruding things, that sort. So for the bottom, I really want this to be a little bit below and above. I kind of want to put this, and this is one of those things of you figure out how do you actually want to design something. With the hinged object option of modeling an existing object, well, there you go. You have an existing object to take measurements from. Building your own container, well, it's a little potentially more simplified, but at the same time, you're pulling the dimensions from your own plans. So with this, I want it to be a little bit more split clamshell. So it's going to be recessed. So what I want to do, what I mean by that is I want this extrusion to go a little bit below where I currently am, but I also want it to go a little bit above. So with that, I'm going to hit extrude, select that profile. Now, so far, we've been doing either one-sided, we can go up, down, and then we can add another one. But we also have other options. There's symmetrical, which of course it goes in symmetric sides. It goes up and down at the same rate. But we also have the other option, two sides. I can do right from the get-go my two different extrusions. So down, I only want to go like, let's say 5. So it's only going 5 millimeters below. Above, let's go, you know what, I want to make this like a full clamshell thing. Let's say 20. Okay, so with one extrusion, I was able to take that profile both above and below the construction plane. Really convenient way of working like that. So one of the things I could do here also is, yeah, I can establish my lid, all of that, and I will do that. But what we've been doing so far would have been, all right, so I've taken this, I can now take a, draw a new sketch on top and extrude downward. Well, with the loft project, we discussed using the shell tool. This is a really excellent way of just creating a hollow space that is just built around the external sides, meaning I'm not trying to build a specific profile to cut in. I just want to have a general build up, basically just a hollow shell thing, you know, like the tool says. So I'm gonna select shell, select the top face there, and just decide my wall thickness. Doesn't need to be thick. Let's say 3. There we go. Instantly creates a 3 millimeter all the way around hollow space within this box. Really convenient way of working. Click OK. All right. Blam, that's really all I need. Are there other ways of doing this? Absolutely. But in this case, we'll just do this. Now I am looking at this, you know what, that wall thickness might be a little thin, so I could always go back, edit feature. Let's make that 4. Not exactly a problem. Okay. So now I want to make my lid. And for this, I'm just going to make a top for this thing. Cool. Well, I don't need to actually build any new sketches or anything. I can use that original sketch. Now it is within the box bottom component, which can cause problems, but we'll deal with that. Let's see. So first, what I want to do, I'm going to save, and we'll put that as Boodum, because I can't spell. There we go. All right. Box bottom. Reactivate Hulk project. Now new component. Box lid. New component. All right. So I have two options here. I can either find that sketch, activate it, hide the bodies, and I can still use this sketch, or I can copy and paste it, bring it over. Technically, you got a third option. You can use the project tool and bring it onto this one. So it doesn't really matter which one you want to try or which one you want to use. Remember to if you want to copy and paste from one component to another, what you have to do is you have to activate that previous sketch while it's in sketch mode or sketch edit mode. Copy it there. Start on the new one. New sketch, then you can drop it in place. So to do that, go to the sketch, and I can just select it off the hierarchy tree. Edit sketch. I'm going to hide those calipers entirely because I don't want those to be accidentally grabbed. So just going to grab the whole to do here. Control or Command C, copy. Finish that sketch. Now go and activate the bottom lid one. Start a sketch. Still using on the same plane. Control V or Command V. And there you go. So same deal. No change there. I just copy and pasted. Like I said, there's multiple options for this. I chose this one just to go through the process again. Okay, finish sketch. I can unhide the bottom if I want to. And who doesn't? Whatever. All right, same deal, working with the same sketch. Mainly, I just want to double check that I am starting from there. Now, yeah, you could measure this top. It was, what was it, 20 millimeters? Great. But I'm going to start the lid here, and I'm going to do a simple extrusion again. I'm going to select that sketch profile. Now, it's going to cause some problems because it's trying to select both versions. So you want to make sure to hide the other component there, just so it's easier to actually grab what you want. You can unhide it after you select it. Now, like I said, for the bottom, I can extrude in multiple directions at once in different ways. However, this sketch is still down here. Well, I want to build a lid for this, but I don't want to like move that sketch, whatever. The other option, again, is your start. So far, we've been using start for the profile plane. The other options are you can set in a defined offset, which is basically like working from an offset construction plane just without actually building one. The other option is from object. You can just select another object for it to start from. It has to share the plane in parallel, but so long as that's the case, you can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top edge of my bottom container, or the bottom of my container, and now my extrusion will start from right there. Slicker than snap. All right, so the top, it's just a lid. So let's say, well, I do want to put some tapers and such like that to it. So let's say, yeah, 10 works. Okay, cool. There we are. Same deal. Now I can do the same. I can make a hollow shell inside of there. Let me hide the lower component so I can see what I'm doing. Make it the same, 4 millimeters thick. Great. Okay. Reactivate the whole to do. And now you can see what I'm working with here. Let me hide let me change the visual display just so I can clear up a little bit what I'm doing. So right now I have a container, not very exciting. I'll add some fillets and all kinds of fun like that to it. But right now it's just that square, or it's a rounded side. Hide the bottom, you can see inside that stuff, and I'm going to have my calipers nested in there. I'm going to make an insert to take up the space for that. Cool. All right. Next up is I want to build in a hinge for this. Now with the hinged object, and let me go ahead and save this real quick. It made. With the other hinge object model, again, you were working off of something that existed, and it had a built-in hinge as part of the form. You know, pliers, scissors, that sort of thing makes sense. Well, a lot of times you have, sure, you can have external hinges, things like that. Think of like, you know, literally any box you've ever seen. You're going to have either bolt-on hinges or it's going to have them molded into it. And in this case, I want to mold them into it. And easiest thing to do with that is simply starting from a circular form or a circular sketch and then building tabs that either fit the top or the bottom. And then we'll extrude them to match. So because I'm going to be doing a sketch that's going to be shared over two different objects, I'm going to draw the sketch built into the original or the uppermost component. I'm not going to draw this sketch in the top or the bottom or lid component, and of course not in the calipers. I'm going to start it in the actual sketches here. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the box to wherever you want to orient your lid to start from. In this case, it's going to start from the back, pretty much right on the center here. I'm going to start a sketch. I can't get to the actual origin right now, so let me hide these guys so I can see the damn thing. There we are. Now unhide stuff and I can see what I'm doing again. Now, just like the other one, or really anything, you can base this around hardware you already have in mind, or you can build it to then find hardware to fit. 6 millimeters is usually a good one. It's kind of overkill for this, so make it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to start with just a simple circle. and I want it to share this line here. So I'm going to build it somewhere out here. And the first one, let's say I'm probably going to use like some 3mm threaded rod. So I can just use, first circle is 3. And with this, I'm just simply building something right there. Now I'm going to build another circle out, and I'm going to have this out to actually make contact with the sides here. All right. So this is going to be my hinge, tiny little hole in the middle. Yeah, it's kind of overkill, but whatever. Now I'm going to build some tabs that go to either the top or the bottom. And they're all going to be shared in the same part, or in the same sketch here. You just select different ones. Makes it a lot easier. All right. So to do something like that, let's make it a little bit mildly fancy. So I'll start from the top here. I'm going to use a fit point spline, and I'm just drawing something over to where it matches to that side. Now, one quick thing to note, if this were a closed sketch, this would have gone, or this would have given me a the blue hue there. So the problem is I can either have to draw in a line here, or what I could do is I can use the project tool. So press P, and I want to select specified entities. Yep, I don't want the whole component, the whole body rather. I want to select just the edge of the lid and the side there. Click OK. Now let me hide the two parts. Now it is shared just that outside edge line, and now my hinge has filled in. Easy way to work. Do the same thing for the top, but we'll just do a straight line. So let's start there-ish, and then I will mouse over the circle till it gives me a tangent symbol, or I could have used a constraint. That works too. Great. That's all I need. So really all I need for this is, again, a center diameter circle for whatever hardware I want to use. I'm going to use a 3mm threaded rod. The outer part, which is really just the actual barrel of the hinge, and then the tabs that either go to the top or the bottom. These can be really whatever you please. But again, like we were just talking about design, think of something that's going to be thick enough so it's strong enough when it's printed. Unhide the top and bottom. Okay. Finish sketch. There we are. So now I have this sketch that is on the main component. It is not on either of these lid or bottom components, but the good thing is that means it can be shared by either. So I have this center hinge here. Cool. To create a type of hinge, now I'm just going to make a basic barrel hinge with like a center and then some sides. One part fits on the bottom, a couple parts fit on the lid, vice versa. Frankly, it's totally up to you how you want to design this. We can even make it more complex, but here we go. So I'm going to use Extrude again. For the bottom here, depending on if I want to connect this right in one go or I want to connect it later, want to make sure that whether or not your component that you plan to be working on is active. I'm going to go ahead and select the active component. So I'm going to select bottom, top ghosts out. Now I've got my extrude going again. I canceled it before. So now I'll show you, I want to select not the center, but I'll select that ring. I want to select the bottom tab. As I extrude this out, it builds a hinge directly built onto my form. Now with this, I want to make this going, let's do symmetric. And I want this to be, 50 seems reasonable. Sure, great. I can always tweak that sketch later. That's fine. So for now, there we go. Now I need to create the opposing hinge for the lid. So I'm going to switch, activate the box lid. I need to unhide that sketch because it hit it again. Extrude again. Now you can only do one side at a time. Even though you can technically extrude two sides opposing, you can't start them out on either end. So that's the only trick to this. So same, I need to select the circle and I need to select the top tab. But like I said, instead of extruding directly, and let's just make that 20. I don't want that directly there. I want the start to be, oops, not there, from an object. And now I'm going to select the face of my other tab here, and it just starts it over there. Great, that's all I need. Make the other one, right click, repeat extrude, orbit over, select the circle, select the tab, make that 20. Only I want this to be -20 because it's going the other direction. And start from object, select that face, black. There we go. So that is a really easy way to make a type of hinge. Now, still have the parts I need to add to it, like importing the hardware and activating the actual joint. Now, is this the only type of hinge you can make? Oh my, no. Do take note of just different hinges. But this is a really easy way to make a simple hinge. You see how I could easily add more tabs. So if I wanted to make this like multiple fingered hinges, that works too. This is just one solid open thing. All right, so I do want to connect these two with a joint. So I'm gonna go up, select joint. My motion is a revolve one. Now this is where this thing kind of gets a little tricky. Technically, I would like to get this smack in the middle. And you can see I can select it inside of that tube, but it gets a little awkward. So do your best to try to see where you're working. If you're having trouble seeing it, hide components that you don't need to see, and then you can work from there. Now, is it imperative that you get your hinge smack in the center there? Not really. You could technically do this to where, since my two tabs, or since the two sides share a face, or they technically share a couple faces, what I could do is I can just make one side fit here, unhide the lid, hide the bottom, the other one right there, and now you got that. Now the problem is I did that backwards. Right now, remember what you select first is what will move, and what you select second is what will move to where, or rather to where it will move. So I did that backwards. So I'm going to cancel that and then just swap them, that's all. So I want to select my lid first. Command hold right there, unhide. And hold right there. There we are. And motion is still there we go. So now the lid actually is the thing that rotates. That's all. All right. Don't forget when you're working with joints, don't forget to ground the component that doesn't move. So I'm going to right click on the bottom box component. Second from the top is ground. Now that will not move. So I can click, so I can drag, click and drag the lid, and it will not move that bottom hinge. I don't want to capture the new position. We'll revert. Now I do want to go in and mess with the joints, but first let me save. If I can spell. Oh, that should have been the hinge. Yeah, whatever. You get the idea. Expand the joint. There we go. I want to set the maximum. Really, that's just going to be 180. So I know perfectly well that's going to just open and close to that size. There we go. Going the wrong way. There we go. You can just use the flip command if it's going the same distance, just in the wrong direction. Just use the flip and it'll orient it a different way. Okay. Now, like I was saying before, a couple of things about any of this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and save. Joint limits. When you're adding strength to your form, definitely look into things like fillets. You can certainly do like a face fillet on the top. Let's say 1. What's the problem? Is it too big? This is what I was worried about doing that drawing here. So my fillet on top won't allow me to go any further because I made my tab there. So this is where you definitely want to decide if you want to add these sort of features before you add any of these parts. So I'll do a little round over, another fillet, bottom. That I can make it much more rounded. Let's do 2 for reasons. So now the bottom has a bit more round to it, super freaking duper. We can certainly add things like clasps, things like that, and I will do something like that. But first I want to show you the other part of this is the insert. So let me start one more. Insert, if I can spell. There we go. Okay. So with this part, I'm gonna go ahead and hide the lid. That's fine. Reactivate the whole thing so I can see what I'm doing here. And the calipers. So what I want to do is I just want to create something that fits inside of here, but also fits here. So this is where you're going to start using some projection to, or using the project tool or the like to either you can start from sketches or you can just straight up start from the existing forms you have. Does anybody have any questions so far, by the way? I mean, this part's all pretty straightforward except for the hinge parts and stuff like that. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to create a just material insert here. And to do this, what I can do is, like I said, I can use the project tool, anything like that. That's probably going to be the easiest way to start this insert for this part. So what I'll do, activate my component, and I want to start a sketch on that inner plane. But what I want to do is I want to try to grab, and this gets a little awkward because I put that fillet in there. I want to use the project to grab the inside edge here. Now, the good thing is what I can do is I can just select, or I can just mouse over that, and I should be able to be getting, yeah, it's just selecting just that inside flat surface. So great. That's all I want. That's all I need for that. Select OK. Now, yes, I can also select the profile of my caliper, but I'm going to show you a different way to do that. So, all right, finish that sketch. Great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another extrude for that sketch. And let's say, let's make that 3 millimeters thick. Great. That's a new body, all within that component. Super friggin' duper. Make sure that that is actually the thing. Great. Okay. So let me activate the whole project again. You can see a little more clearly what's going on. So basically all I did is I just made a insert. Basically, if you've ever seen a box for these or anything like that, probably have like a foam material or something like that. Really easy to work with. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my combine tool. But basically what I want to do is just cut away this whole caliper thing from this part. So my target body is there. My tool body is the caliper, but I don't want to join. I want to cut. Now, don't forget to select the checkbox to keep tools, because you could make a custom tool, whatever. What that refers to is just simply the other body that the first is interacting with. And if you wanted to make a blank recess, well, then you could then it'll just automatically delete that tool. However, I super don't want that. So I'm going to select that, and it's going to keep that caliper component. Hit OK. Great. Now, basically, I have an insert in there. Let me hide the calipers. That's simply it fits that same profile. Now this, I could add little things, you know, there's always things that you often see, like little spots for like other batteries, things like that. It'd be super easy to hold onto there. You could also move this over, add pens and pencils into here. Yay, I've made a pencil box, that sort. I do want to add a little bit of thickness to this. I'm going to add that to, let's say, 5. Great. Recalculated, same thing. Box lid, super freaking duper. Okay. Last thing, hardware. So I'm going to need something that pops in between all of that and then has end caps. So I'm going to go to Insert, McMaster-Carr. Sometimes it takes a moment for this to activate. Well, apologies, give you a moment. There we go. And instead of screws, I want threaded rod. And yeah, we're going to use metric because it's already built on the metric. I'm going to use M3 because it's a 3mm hole, and stainless steel because it's the bestest. Now the problem is you got to make sure that you have your measurement first. So I forgot to measure that first. So that's okay. Let me cancel. And what I need is to use my inspect tool, measure. I want to measure from this face all the way through to this face. That is 140mm. And then I'm going to add a little bit more so that I have some space for whatever nuts I'm using. Back to McMaster-Carr. Oh, it almost saved where I was. Metric, M3. Stainless because it's best. All right. Well, the next closest is 150. So that's not a lot of extra space, but I think it'll work for what I need to do. Click OK. Brings up the thingy thing. Totally technical. Product detail. Don't have to go all the way to product detail. Remember, you're not using SolidWorks. I'm going to scroll down and you want to use the step file. Now it does give you an option, step with no threads. Like we were talking about with the thread, anytime you're modeling threads, you can use a checkbox to either model them or don't. It saves space as far as like visual calculation, but it's a simple enough model. So I'm going to use step. So I'm going to keep the threads. Download. And blorp. There we go. Now with this, yeah, I'm going to orient this first because that's going to be really confusing otherwise. And then I'm just going to move this out of the way. I don't want to actually model it just, or I don't want to place it just yet. All right, move copy. I'm going to capture the new position. Great, it's in. What is it? What did I get? That's not threaded rod. That's internally threaded rod. I grabbed the wrong thing. Or it might be the wrong link. Always possible there. Let's just see. Let's do. Oops. No. I need something that's metric. M3. Length 150. Yeah, somehow it's kicking me over to tapered shafts instead of threaded rod. Well, that's hecka weird. Very strange. Give me a moment. Just trying to figure out what's going on here. Threading, fully threaded. There we go. That's what I need. All right, so problem here is those are totally larger than what I actually need for. So in reality, what you'd be doing is you would be getting something longer than just physically cutting it down. We can actually trim this model. So I'm just going to bring this in. Sure, 300mm, way bigger than I need it to be, but whatever, it'll work. Saves my step file. Great. Go on. Sorry, calculating, thinking, robotifying, whatever have you. Okay, finally loaded. So again, this is much larger than it needs to be. And I'm going to try and trim the model itself. Just going to orient it, plop it over. Super good. There we go. Okay. So this is, of course, where it says what it means when it says threaded or not threaded. Having it fully modeled like that, yeah, totally does bring some problems in. All right. Yeah, capture new position. That's fine. I do still want to get some nuts for that. All right. Metric, 3 millimeter. And let's find something fancy. Let's use some acorn nuts. Because stainless is the best. Not really, but it is useful. Bloop. Okay. Get that out of the way. Let's orient this at least so it makes a little more sense. There we are. Zooming in on that. Great. Super good. Yep, capture position. That's fine and dandy. Okay. All right. So for this part, yes, we are going to need to trim this rod, but we'll do that later. Main thing I want to do is I just want to plop it in place. So main thing, let's see what I can do. I'm not sure if it'll let me trim this down or how well it will. So the first one was totally not the right thing. Actually, let's just go ahead and delete that entirely. Yep, don't want that. Okay, don't want that at all. Okay. Let's activate this, and I needed that to be, oh crud, I already forgot. Was it 240? Measure up to there and there. Between those, it is 140. Okay, that's way off. All right, so I need this rod to be more of like 150 millimeters or so. So what I can do for this is I can split this model. It's still a solid, so I can just chop it up. So still a solid body, great. So the thing is 300 millimeters long, and I only needed about half, or I needed like half. So cool. What I can do there then is I can go to modify, and I can use a command called split body. Now this will let you chop any solid form based off of whatever profile you create. Now you can draw this as an actual like profile. This could be like a shows, like a wavy line, whatever have you. So for this, all I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the top. And since I know this is 150, or this is 300 rather, and I only need 150, I can either, let's see here, let's draw a sketch. Oops, cancel that. What I want to do is activate on that component, because might as well add it to there. Sketch right there. Now first, let's draw a construction line. Press X, starting at the end here. And I'm just going to draw upwards a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. 90 degrees. Let's make that 10 out. That's fine. Now I'm just going to draw over. Let's give myself a little bit extra space, make 155. Not 155 degrees. I want it 105. Oh, Christ. Come on. There we go. Accidentally didn't tab over. So there we go. Need a line that is now measuring over 150 millimeter, or 55 in this case. Cool. There we go. And now I want to change one more line. Straight down, doesn't really matter. There we go. Okay. Finish sketch. So what that's going to do is that's just going to provide a line for me to split with. So we use a split body tool. select there. Body to split is that whole threaded rod. So now it's highlighted. Splitting tool. Might not let me select that line because it is construction line. Yep, that's what I thought. Just wanted to double check. Okay, go back to that. And let me just change that last line to a real line. Oh, a real line. Yes. Back to it. Split there. Splitting tool is that line. What's going on here? And it automatically assumes that because it crosses that because that line crosses that body, that it's just going to draw a little. It's going to build itself a little miniature plane, show you that it's cutting there. You can select the extend cutting tools or deselect it, and it'll just go all over. It just goes to the extent of whatever your cutting line is or feature is. If you check the box, it just keeps it small like that, just in case this was like inside of a model, you don't accidentally split other things. That's all. So cut that. It's going to think about it. Now, what was 1 is 2. So I'm going to hide the one I don't want. And there we go. So if you can't find exactly what you're looking for, you can always chop it down. Makes it a lot easier. Because you're importing these as a solid, not as a mesh, it's a lot easier to work with. Okay, now I can move this threaded rod in place. Now, with the threaded rod, it's definitely tricky to do this. So let's see how this works. But I want to use a joint to move this threaded rod. So let's see if it'll how easily I can even do this. I'm really not sure if it'll let me. Yeah, because threads have all these other faces, it's really hard to deal with sometimes. Yeah, not really letting me do this very easily. What I'm trying to do is just select somewhere in the middle. So when you have something like this, where it's really tough to like select inside, one of the things you could do is you see these other options for mode, simple. That's when you're just selecting something in the center there. You have other options, edge intersections and between two faces. So what I can do is I can select the between two faces, and I'm going to select either end of this threaded rod. So between that one and that one. And now it knows that I'm trying to select smack in the middle. So there we go. It sees my selection point is between that plane, and now it's just asking me where I really want to put that. So snap, yep, to, let's see here. Trying to find the middle. Probably should have drawn that out. Yeah, sure, right there. That is definitely not on where I want it to be. This is always a pain with this stuff. Still trying to select smack in the middle, and it's not really letting me because it's still wanting to select along those surfaces. Just want a rigid point. That should work. All right. Now I'm gonna do the same for up here. I want to etch this technically to the inside of the bottom, the box bottom here. So I'm going to hide the lid, do the same between two faces, right there and right there. And then my point is a lot easier to get at. So it snapped it to right there. Great. Oh, it didn't finish snapping the first. Fine. There we go. So what I did there is I selected just the center of the two faces, and it decided that, yes, it wants it right smack in the middle. So great. That is now lodged smack in the middle of the bottom of the box inside that tube I created. So this is one of the ones where you just kind of got to play with it a little bit. Oh, nope, I did not get it smack in the middle. So one of the ones is clearly not where it needs to be. So if you run into something like this, You can still keep trying to get to the center, but you can still modify the placement of a joint. This is just a simple joint alignment offset. So what I'm doing here, now I'm going to use the arrows and just drag it into place. There we go. It just didn't select it right exactly where I wanted it to go, and where it probably didn't select properly was inside that threaded rod. So that's where it gets problematic. But now I've snapped it in place. That's what I want. I select it as a rigid joint. I don't need that to move at all. That's just going to stay right where it is. Great. Hit OK. That's all in there now. So it's another joint. Super good. Now let me unhide the lid. Now I want to put this nut in place. Now the thing is, I've only got one. I need two. Well, obviously I can tweak that later, or I can just copy and paste and add a second one. Not a big deal. So let me activate that component. Open that up. Bodies. There we go. And that just means copy, paste, added a second one. I'm just going to move it over a little bit just so I can see what I'm doing there. Click OK. Great. That's all. Just copy and paste it the same one. It's all on the same component. No need to change anything. Okay. Now, right now I have this bottom or this component, the acorn nuts activated. I don't want to do that. I want to go back up to the very top, activate the whole project again. Now I'll add the joints to this. Now what I'm doing is I'm not actually adding the joints like to the threaded rod or anything like that. They're not technically linked or anything. I'm just placing them for this project's purpose. That's all you really need to do. So I'm still using just a rigid joint. So I'm going to select joint. Now I'm going to use the simple selection. This first nut, select the face or mouse over the face, press and hold control. Now I can snap there. That's going to move. Now, technically I want it right in the middle of that threaded rod. So I'm going to hide the threaded rod so I can see what I'm doing. Press and hold control, mouse over the plus. Whoop. Nope, it's got both of them. That is problematic. All right, I hit OK. The problem is it accidentally took both components rather than just one body. So let me find out which one is not the one I want. And with that, I am going to select that body and simply add that as a new component, or I'm going to kick it out to a different component. There we are. So let me just move that out of the way there. So again, I can see what I've done. So what I did is I just simply created that as a new component. That's all. No big deal. Okay. Another joint, still rigid. Mouse over the bottom. Oops. Mouse over the bottom, press and hold control. Threads sometimes just really give hell. There we go. Back over here. Mouse over the surface, press and hold control, snap to there. New one snaps in place. Okay. That is what I needed to have happen. Now I'm going to unhide that threaded rod. Yeah, so the threaded rod is definitely a bit too long. I will have to trim that down. Or I could have just used a nut that had a pass through rather than that. But there we go. That's pretty much what I was going for. Let me go ahead and save. Hardware added. Okay. So now this container has a top and bottom, two components at least, connected with the lid. It is specifically to hold those calipers that I just quickly modeled. I made that insert in there, so it's actually separate. So if I went to go print this, I could print this all separately, and then I could always change out the insert. This is just a good way of working with something like this. So that way you wouldn't have to have that locked in place. You could always change out that insert rather than having it permanently part of your model. Same thing if I wanted to maybe later just use the same container and instead make like some dividers or something like that. Easy way to do stuff like that. Lid moves, hardware stays put. Actually, if you look in close, because I snapped the hardware to the lid, the hardware is actually linked to the lid itself. So there you go. I'll have to change, like I said, I'll have to trim those this threaded rod down a little bit more. Probably should have kept it at the 150 instead of the 155, but whatever. So there we go. And I'm going to leave the lid as partially ajar. And that's pretty much what we're going for. So yeah, it's a simple box, but there's still a lot of stuff to model. And again, this is really simple in so much as that I would expect you to have more parts to this. Especially, I want to model like a couple of tabs onto this, which could be something as simple as just a little thumb tab even. Something like, let me close the lid here. And capture the new position. Reactivate the box top. And let's see here, add a sketch to the origin sketch. I can't see what I'm doing because everything is in the way. There we go. And I'm just going to add, like, say, even something that's just a little half circle. Let's say, let's make that 15. Okay. What just happened? Oh, because that's down at the bottom. Oh, right, because that was at the sketch thing. That's okay. So now I'm just going to, well, since I accidentally did that, I need to go back and adjust that sketch. What I forgot is that, I don't know why it keeps flipping around like that. Since that is all the way at the bottom, I do need to create a halfway point. So we'll just draw a line between there. Really doesn't matter what I'm doing there. Just that way it's now two separate things. There we go. So now, because all I wanted is just that little thumb tab there. Box lid, extrude that box lid to that. But I want it to start at an object, which is the bottom of that. So now, as I extrude it, it will start appearing right there. And we'll make it like 2 millimeters. Cool. So now that's obviously going to join. Great. Something like that. You definitely want to add like a fillet between those points. Let's say like 1, might be too big. Yeah, something like that. That works nicely. Or tell you what, instead, we cancel that one. Full round. I'm going to select the outside there. Ooh, roundy part. Click OK. Another fillet. I just want right there, that corner. Say 1, see what it says. Great. So like I said, now the full round was just a nice feature, but as I was saying, design features, things to make your parts stronger. If this were just left as just a straight corner tab, this would break off a lot easier. But now that I've added this fillet around this little tab, it would hold on much, much better just because there's extra support material around it. Select OK, reactivate the whole thing. And now there's just a little tab that holds that you can open the bottom with, or open the top with. That's all. So it's just a nice little feature. Things like that. I highly recommend adding things like that. But it depends on what you're building. And again, this is simply something that I could open up and, oops, have a container for a thing. So that's pretty much what you're going for. Dedicated container, holding something specific. The model doesn't have to be exact inside. It's much more about just that you actually are making reference to what you're holding. But same thing, some sort of open and close, hinge, imported parts, joint, all of that fun. Okay, so good luck with it. And of course, let me know where I can help.